So as you know on the channel guys, we like to go through the latest championship transfer rumours. What I thought we'd do for today's video is have a little bit of a look into the transfer business that each club has done so far, and realistically, which positions do you still need to strengthen? I'd be really interested to get your guys' input into this one, so do leave in the comments down below which are the key positions and key areas where you do still need a few players to come in. Just before we do hop into anything though, a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, you can find the new OneFootball app in the top line of the description down below. Really handy app to have as we do head into this new season. If you want to keep up to date with all the latest transfer news and speculation around your club, if you want to get the latest stats and live updates to your phone whenever a goal does go in when we do head into this new season, then OneFootball is the place to be for all of that. So like I say, link down below. Also, I must say a big thank you to you guys for 28,000 subscribers. The support lately has been absolutely mad, but without any further ado, let's hop into this one. Starting out with Barnsley. Now I'm interested to know what formation they'll be going into this new season with. They ended last time playing that 5 at the back system, which actually worked quite well for them. They've recently re-signed Ludwig, coming back on loan from Red Bull Salzburg, who played out on that right hand side. They've also brought in Dominic Fraser so far, who's another wide option for them. In terms of where they still need to strengthen though, I can't help but feel like another midfielder wouldn't go amiss for them. Someone to play alongside Alex Mowatt in that holding midfield role. Mowatt got a lot of energy, but someone to just sit in there. They've released Dougal from last season, so that defensive role is quite up for grabs for Barnsley at the moment. Ben Whiteman's one name that I've been seeing going around Barnsley recently. Now that would be an absolutely terrific signing, absolutely everything that they'd need. A midfield 2 of him next to Alex Mowatt would be absolutely fantastic. Just had a brilliant season with Doncaster in League One. For me, that's the sort of player Barnsley are missing at the moment. Next up to Birmingham, they've actually been linked with another midfielder as I'm recording this video. Adam Clayton, the latest one to be linked. That, if anything, seems like it's a bit of an overload in a position at the moment. But in terms of where they do need to strengthen, the two obvious ones at either end of the pitch, goalkeeper and striker, are an absolute must for Birmingham in this transfer window. They've had Lee Camp for the past few seasons, he's now gone, and I think it's those two positions which will define Birmingham's season really. Obviously, under Karanka, you'd expect them to be playing one up top. Djukovic has had like mixed success playing one up top really, hasn't he? In a 2, he's excellent, you know, whether that was with Scott Hogan or Che Adams, but that other forward option is absolutely vital for Birmingham this season, as is that goalkeeper. Blackburn Rovers, going forward, I think their squad's looking fairly strong. They've also just signed goalkeeper Thomas Kaminski. That was a position that were in need of strengthening. Now the positions that are left, I'd say central defender and left back, especially that central defender role. Replacing Gadi Rabayo is not going to be easy, is it? They had him on loan from Man City last season, a defender who was comfortable on the ball and bringing the ball out from defence. He had a brilliant partnership last time round with Darrell Lenihan, so replacing that quality is not going to be easy. Also for left back as well, they had Greg Cunningham on loan for the first half of the season up until he got injured. After that, Bell played there for quite a bit of the season, but it's an obvious area where they need to look into. Next up to Bournemouth. Now, after the sale of Aaron Ramsdale, goalkeeper is an obvious position where Bournemouth are going to be looking into, but could you stake a claim for Mark Travers maybe stepping up as their #1 goalkeeper? I'd certainly imagine he'll be more in and around the squad this season. Made a handful of appearances from Bournemouth's time in the Premier League. I mean, Ramsdale was one goalkeeper who they took a gamble on and that seemed to pay off, so they may do the same again this season, but a goalkeeper to at least challenge for that #1 spot I think will be one area to look into. As well as that quality in wide areas, I think is going to be another issue. A couple of wingers for Bournemouth definitely wouldn't go amiss. We're still really waiting on seeing who else is going to actually depart, but for the time being for Bournemouth, it'll probably be those wide areas in that goalkeeper position that I'll be looking into. For Bristol City, I think it's defensive depth which is needed going into this season. They're another side which plays that 5 at the back system. Right wing back, one area to look into. They had Pedro Pereira on loan from Benfica last season. In that role at the moment, they got Jack Hunt, need a bit of competition for him. Obviously, they do have Zach Viner as well, but unless they see him really stepping up this season and making that right wing back role into his own, then I think that's an area to look into. Also, central defence as well, with them playing those 3 centre halves. No longer having Ashley Williams there, that's an obvious position to look into as well. Brentford overall, I think their squad looks strong. Strikers the obvious option to look into. With the likely departure of Ollie Watkins, there seems to be more speculation around Watkins at the moment than there does seem to be Ben Rama, but we've obviously had this whole transfer fiasco go on so far with the Ivan Toney situation, so it's obvious that Brentford are in the market for a striker. They'll look elsewhere now, but if there's any recruitment team in the Championship that you're probably back to get the replacement right, it is Brentford's, isn't it? No matter who they go in for, they're bound to create a bunch of chances throughout the season, so I wouldn't at all be surprised to see if they pick up some unknown gem and morph him into something quite special. Cardiff have been fairly busy in the transfer window so far. Kiefer Moore comes in as the big signing, but they've also recently brought in Jordi Asai-Tutu from Arsenal. He comes in as a right back on loan for the season. Another position that they're in need of strengthening, so they've done fairly well for that one. In terms of what else Cardiff are in need of, I think looking into their midfield, it's quite robust at the moment. I think another creative option in that area, centrally to help alongside Lee Tomlin. I think certainly at times last season, Cardiff were maybe a little bit too reliant on Lee Tomlin. Should he get injured again, that's the sort of zone where they'll we'll be looking for a spark of something from in those areas. Next up to Coventry, who are still in need of a little bit of business. For me, another striker definitely wouldn't go amiss. I mean, you see the quality difference in the Championship. Coventry's first game of the season will be up against Bristol City, where, I mean, leading the line for Bristol City, you'd imagine, will be Naki Wells and Famara Jeju. Each of them worth like 5 to 10 million, so that shows what they're up against immediately. Ben Sheaf's been one name who's been constantly linked with Coventry throughout the window. They'll be looking to get him. I think the loan market will be one option that Coventry will be looking into. You know, Tyler Walker was a striker we spoke about yesterday for Coventry as a possibility. Derby County done well recently to bolster their defensive options. They're looking a lot stronger. David Marshall coming in the net, massive improvement on what they had last season. Matt Clark returning for another season as well will give them a big boost. In terms of what they're still in need of, looking forward, a replacement for Chris Martin as that sort of physical presence up front. I think a lot of Derby fans are hopeful that Jack Marriott can really get back to his best this season as well, but a hold-up man and a bit of a presence up front like Chris Martin definitely wouldn't go amiss. As well as that, another wide man I think could be quite useful for Derby, someone to play out on that right-hand side. And speaking of the goalkeepers, Huddersfield Town. Now, interestingly enough, I did notice the other day that they have made Ben Hamer their #1 goalkeeper, as in that he will be wearing the #1 shirt next season. If that's a sign that he's going to be their actual #1 on the pitch, I'm a little bit concerned for them. Last time he was playing for Huddersfield in the Premier League, 7 starts, he conceded 21 goals. Had a loan spell last season with Derby where, I mean, we'll let Derby fans paint the picture in the comments down below, but less than impressive there. I think that's an obvious position where they need to strengthen. With Luton Town, I think a pair of new fullbacks is what's needed for this season. When they play that diamond under Nathan Jones, the 2 fullbacks are absolutely vital to that system. Last season we saw James Bree there. We'll see if they go back in for him or not on another loan from Aston Villa. At left back, they're definitely a position they need to strengthen with Brandon Galloway still recovering from a knee injury. Obviously it's the role of a modern fullback to get back and forward, but when you're playing that diamond in midfield, it's also their role to provide that width constantly throughout the match, so they are really a vital part of that Luton system. Another creative midfielder I think could be useful as well, with Izzy Brown not being there this time round. So far for Middlesbrough, Grant Hall has been the only arrival. I think they need to look into quite a few other options. If we look at their squad from last season, they're the lowest scoring in the Championship, only hit the back of the net 48 times. In terms of their striking options, they're not the worst in the league. You know, Ashley Fletcher and Assam Bolonga, more than capable at this level. They both hit double figures last season. It's all about creativity and actually getting the ball to them. Wide options and creativity from midfield are a must in this transfer window for Middlesbrough if they do want to progress. As well as that, a couple of other areas to look into. That replacement at the back for Daniel Ayala. Neil Warnock's already spoken about another goalkeeper coming in as well, perhaps. Quite a few needed in at Middlesbrough for me, but like I say, they've been a bit slow off the mark so far. Millwall, I think, are looking fairly well set up for this season. Done some decent business so far. Troy Parrott could turn out to be one of the signings of the season, getting him on loan from Spurs this season. In terms of where they need to look into, I think another player out on that left-hand side could be quite useful. When they played that 3-4-3, Bud Vartan was used on that left-hand side as sort of like an unconventional winger who tucked inside a little bit, wasn't he? So someone with a bit of dynamism on that left-hand side I think would be quite a nice option for Millwall. Norwich, what they need of, still another centre-half I'd say, and then their transfer business would probably, I'd say, be done for this summer, depending on what else happens with any possible outgoings. But they shipped 75 goals in the Premier League last season, so another experienced centre-back is what is needed. They've been linked to them throughout the window so far. Van der Horn's one name we saw linked, Alfie Mawson another, but I think in other areas of the squad, Norwich looking quite strong going forward especially. So it really is just that centre-half position which is in need of a bit of strengthening. Apart from that, we'll wait and see what happens with some of their big stars, if they're able to keep hold of them or not, but at the moment their squad's looking in pretty good shape. Nottingham Forest, now if we're going off transfer speculation, it would appear that another winger is what they're in the market for at the moment. Jacob Murphy being the latest player to be linked with a move to the City Ground would be a sensible option for them. I think that a bit more dynamism in that squad, a little bit more pace in those forward areas to allow them to counter-attack will be quite good. And then depending on what happens with both Joe Worrell and Matty Cash really, because I'd say at the moment their recruitment's been fairly decent and they're looking fairly well set up for this season. Lyle Taylor I think will be an excellent addition. Colback I think as well was quite a sensible move for them. I think maybe after this we'll see Forest dipping into the loan market for the rest of the season. Preston North End, probably the most obvious one we'll talk about today. We're in desperate need of a striker to push us on to that next level. If we're looking at the options that we've got in the squad at the moment, I'd probably say our best options through the middle would be like playing a winger at the moment. Someone like Scott Sinclair or Tom Barkhuizen I think will be most effective in that role at this point in time. I think that if you play Stockley up front, you're a little bit limited by his mobility. I think he's a decent target man, but with the way we like to play over a full season, I don't think Stockley would be the man to lead the line week in, week out. Same can be said for Maguire as well. Can be a decent player when you play two up front. I think Stockley and Maguire actually could work fairly well together, but with our reluctancy to play two up front, I don't think Maguire can be the man to lead the line for you either for a full season. I think he's probably better as an inside forward. Nugent, I think, is going to be shown the door, and Louis Mott's still recovering from his injury. We'll wait to see how he comes back, but the striker's the obvious choice for Preston. QPR are about to have a very interesting transfer window, with it looking like Eze's on his way to Crystal Palace. How they go ahead and reinvest that money into the squad is going to be quite telling, because there are quite a few areas they need to plug up. Defence is the obvious one at the moment, central defence. We spoke about it in the last video, some options that QPR could look into. Tom Lockyer, who's available on the free from Charlton, could be a decent option to look into, but there are still a couple of other areas they need to look into. Obviously, replacing Eze himself isn't going to be an easy one. Maybe they say Ilias Chair stepping up into that role this season. As well as that, another striker could be useful as well. They've already brought in Lyndon Dykes, but I see him as the replacement for Jordan Hugill. Someone like Inaki Wells will be quite useful as well, someone quite nippy to play off him. Reading's got a lot going on at the club at the moment with the whole Mark Bowen situation. In terms of the positions they need to look into strengthening, getting a Jaria on a permanent is one bit of business that they need to get over the line. He was absolutely superb for moments last season. Another winger I think will be quite helpful, but also looking to plug the gaps of their loan players who will be leaving. So another centre-back to replace Matt Miazga, or a holding midfielder to replace Pele. In terms of their forwards, I think they're looking alright actually. You know, Yaku Mete, Puskas and Lucas Jow, I think if you keep them three fit for a full season, you've got three players who can easily all get into double figures. Rotherham have been pretty busy in this transfer window so far. Jamal Blackburn being their latest signing. He comes in as a goalkeeper on loan from Chelsea, as well as that Wes Harding, Angus McDonald, Kieran Sadler, who I think could be a fantastic option for them. Absolutely ripped things up in League One for Doncaster, and Miller's come in as well for them. In terms of where they still need to strengthen, Paul Warren's talked about bringing in another midfielder. I think another forward option wouldn't go amiss either. Someone who's got a bit of spark about him in midfield, someone like a number 10. I think if they do get one or two more in, they're not looking all too bad heading into this season, Rotherham. Sheffield Wednesday for the remainder of the window, I think it's all about forward options for them after some of the players they lost after their contracts ran down. You know, the likes of Fletcher, Forestieri, Windass, who's no longer there, Murphy as well. Wingers and strikers are absolutely crucial. You know, if they're going to be going into this season relying on, you know, Jordan Rhodes in 2020 to be overturning this 12-point deficit, you'd imagine they'd struggle. I do like some of the business that they've done so far, you know, picking up Dunkley and Izzy Brown. Rumours going around at the moment that they're in for Josh Windass. Once again, Lecco's been another one mentioned, but it is those forward-thinking options that they really need to get over the line. Stoke City, now they've had a very busy transfer window so far. I'm interested to see how some of these players bed in. Johnny B. McKell, one especially, who I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. In terms of what they're still in need of, going forward, can't help but feel like they're in need of a bit of pace. If Campbell's not on the pitch, there's a real lack of it in that squad, I'd say. That then results in you being a little bit easy to defend against if you've not got that explosivity coming from those wide areas. So definitely something to look into for Stoke, because so far I do like some of the additions that they have made to that squad. I think as well as bringing in a couple more, they're also probably in need of shifting on a few players as well. A bit of deadwood in that squad now. Swansea City have liked some of the business that they've done so far. As of recording, it's looking more than likely that Jamal Lowe will probably end up playing at the Liberty this season, which I think will be a nice addition for them. Where else do they need to look into strengthening? I think that with them using that 3 at the back system, a bit more cover in defence will be helpful. Derek Williams of Blackburn Rovers, been the latest defender to be linked to Swansea. And after that, I think the striker is the key one really. Obviously, that replacement for Brewster, never going to be an easy one, but apart from that, their squad's really looking quite healthy. In an ideal world, they get Brewster back for the season, but I can't see that being too much of a possibility. Whoever they bring in as that striker could be the factor deciding if Swansea finish in the top 6 or not. With Watford so far, things have been a little bit slower to move compared to the likes of Norwich and Bournemouth, with nothing major in terms of incomings or outgoings really happening at the club so far. Jeremy Ngakia did come in from West Ham, comes in as a young fullback. In terms of the players who are likely to leave, Capu at the moment being linked away to Valencia, Doucouré to Everton, so adding to those options in midfield is probably going to be something they look into in this window, as well as that their wide options with Sarr and Deulofeu, who are going to be 2 prize assets who are going to be continuously linked away. Replacing that quality is not going to be an easy one either. But we'll wait to see what happens with Watford, because I think a lot of players are still very much on the fence whether they're going to stay or go. And then finishing off with Wickham, whose squad is looking a little bit thin at the moment. I think that a few positions definitely need sorting out. Fullback need depth in that position. Joe Jacobson, I think they're only left back they got at the club at the moment. Another centre half or two wouldn't go amiss, as well as some more midfield options. I think a lot of people are seeing Wickham this season as a bit of a wild card. No one really knows how they're going to adapt. We'll wait and see what their recruitment says for the rest of this window though, because like I say, at the moment I do think they're in need of quite a few more bodies. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you did go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. So there was every Championship club and what position I think they still need to look into strengthening for this transfer window. Do you agree? What other positions do you think your club needs to look into? Let me know in the comments down below. But apart from that guys, thanks so much for watching, so make sure to stick around and subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.